I found a box in a grave with my name written boldly on the front. And the person who put it there had been dead 11 years ago. OJ, my name is not important. What I'm about to tell you is, I need you to hear this the way I am saying it, because I have never spoken it out loud to anyone. I grew up in a cemetery, not the way people say it to sound poetic. I mean, I actually slept there, behind the groundskeeper's shed at the back of the burial grounds in Accra. My mother died when I was 6. I do not remember her face clearly anymore. Just the warmth of her hands on my shoulder and the way she said my name before everything went quiet. My father was there, and then he was not. No explanation, no letter. He set down the weight of being a father the way you set down a bag that has become too heavy and walked away. After that came the system. Foster homes where I learned not to unpack. Shelters where I took the bottom bunk because someone else always needed the top one more. Then the streets. By the time I was 15, I had stopped waiting for rescue. I told myself which chop bar left food near the back after closing, which mosques unlocked their gates for boys with nowhere to go. Then I found the cemetery. Families came on weekends to visit their dead, and sometimes they paid a quiet boy to clean the grave of someone they had loved. That was enough to survive on. I woke before dawn every morning without an alarm. I scrapped moss from tombstones. I pulled weed from grave plots. I swept the narrow path between the dead and worked harder than men drawing wages. Most visitors walked past me without looking. I was part of the landscape to them, like the iron gates or the neem trees or the shadow between the gates, invisible, unremarkable, but I was there. In the space between exhaustion and sleep, I always came back to the same question. Not why life was hard. I had accepted hard. The question was why everyone who was supposed to stay had gone. There was one person who treated me like I existed, the head groundskeeper. I will call him the old man. He had worked that cemetery so long he knew where every grave was without consulting the map. He did not talk much. His hands were permanently stained with soil. He watched me the way a man watches something he is trying to measure, carefully, without tipping his hands about what he is measuring. One afternoon, he stood at a fence post, watching me scrap green moss off an old marble. He said, "You work too hard." I did not look up. I said, "If I stop working, I stop eating." He said nothing, but something shifted in his face. After that day, he left food near the shed, sometimes a bag of rice, bottled water. He never mentioned it. I never thanked him. We both pretended. One night, when the temperature dropped hard, the supply room door was unlocked. Warm inside. He never said anything about that either. He just made sure the option was there without either of us having to speak. One evening during heavy rain, he walked up and placed a torchlight in my hand. "You should not be working in the dark," he said. I said thanks. He looked out at the grave and went quiet. After a long silence, he said, "Sometimes the dead carry more secrets than the living ever will." I filed it away as the kind of strange things old men say after too many years among the graves. I had no idea how exact those words were. There was one corner of the cemetery that nobody went near. Far back, past the newer graves with their polished stones, past the family plots with wrought iron fences and sealed photographs, all the way to the ridged edge where the maintained path dissolved into overgrown grasses. A single grave sat there. The tombstone was cracked. The name had been worn completely smooth by the weather. No flowers, no holders, no photographs, just a forgotten stone in the forgotten corner that the rest of the world had agreed without discussion to leave alone. It was not on any maintenance schedule, but I cleaned it anyway. Something in me, the same path that understood what it meant to be passed over, could not leave a grave in that condition, even if no one ever came to visit. On a particular evening, the sky had turned that deep bruised purple that rolled in ahead of a serious Accra storm. Thunder came in long, low waves from somewhere past the Tema Road. I was on my knees at the abandoned grave, pulling thick fistfuls of weeds from the mud when my shovel hit something solid. I stopped, pressed it down again. Clang. Something buried directly beneath me. I told myself it was concrete, an old rot, but my hands moved faster, not stabbing anymore, but scooping carefully. The way you move when something tells you that whatever is down there must not be damaged. My fingers closed around something cold and metallic in the mud, a small metallic box, roughly the size of a hand cover book, rusted almost entirely from years of wet ground. The latch had corroded, but it gave with a firm pull. Inside, wrapped in a sealed plastic that had kept every drop of moisture out, was an envelope, old, yellowed, perfectly preserved. I held it towards the last pale grey light left in the sky before the storm swallowed it completely, and I saw the words written across the front in careful, deliberate handwriting. My full name that no one single living person in that cemetery knew. My shovel dropped into my hands. I did not hear it land. I did not open it outside. My hands were shaking too hard. The rain was coming in walls. Something deep told me whatever was inside deserved more than being torn open in the mud. I pressed it against my chest, under my shirt, and walked back to the shed. Sat on the edge of my mattress. Rain hammered the thin roof. Lightning strobed under the door. The bulb overhead swayed. I stared at my name on the front for a long time. Part of me was afraid to open it. As long as it stayed sealed, it could still be anything. It could still be something good. But I opened it. The handwriting inside was urgent. The pen had pressed harder in certain places. Letters slightly larger, slightly shakier, like the person writing was frightened to hold themselves steady. The first 3 sentences hit me like a fist against the chest. If you were reading this, then I have failed to protect you the way I promised I would. My name is Samuel. I am your grandfather. And there are more powerful people who never wanted you to exist. OJ, I had a grandfather, a man who knew my name, who had sat down and written to me and buried his letters specifically so that one day I would find it. I kept reading, but why a cemetery? Your mother tried with everything she had to keep you safe. She was the bravest person I have ever known. Everything you were told about your family was constructed. You were not abandoned. You were not hidden. There is a difference. Please understand this. There is a difference. I wiped my face and kept reading. 11 years I had believed I was thrown away, that something about me specifically was not worth keeping. And here was a dead man telling me that was never true. There is money, there is property, there is truth waiting for you, but there is still danger. The people who destroyed our family have long memories. Trust no one you do not already know. But there is one man you can trust with your life. His name is the old man. I arranged for him to be near you. He has been watching over you by my request since the day you arrived. He made me a promise, and he's the kind of man who keeps his promises. OJ, I stopped breathing. The old man had known all those years. Every bag of rice near the shed, every unlocked door on cold nights, every quiet evening standing at the fence watching me work. He had known his entire time. And then I remembered what he said. Sometimes the dead carry more secrets than the living ever will. He had not been speaking philosophically. He had been telling me the truth in the only way he was permitted to. The letter ended with one paragraph, short, simple, the most devastating thing I had ever read. I am sorry I could not be there with you. I am sorry for every night you were cold and every day you were hungry. You are the last surviving son. You are always loved. I pressed the letter against my chest and closed my eyes. And for the first time since I was 6 years old, I cried. Not entirely from sadness. I cried because I held physical proof that someone had known I existed. I found the old man before sunrise the next morning. He was settling in with his first coffee when he looked up and saw the envelope in my hand. The color drained from his face completely. "You found it," he said quietly. Not a question, a recognition. My jaw tightened. I kept my voice level. "You knew about this." He set his cap down slowly. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Yes." One word. No excuse attached to it. No performance of guilt. Just yes. "How long?" I asked. "Since before you arrived here," he said. "Your grandfather came to me years ago. He needed someone near you he could trust. Someone who could watch without drawing attention. I arranged for word to reach the shelter network about paid work here. So you arranged for me to end up in this specific cemetery." I said. He nodded. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Any of the evenings we sat here, any morning you watched me work, why did you let me spend years believing I had nobody?" His eyes filled with something heavy, the slow burning kind that lives in a person for years with nowhere to go. "Because your grandfather made me promise," he said, "not until you were old enough to carry the truth without being broken by it. And because the people who came after your family had long memories. If they believed you were being found, being linked to your name, they would have come for you. Keeping you invisible kept you alive." I said. "Yes," he said. Then the old man began to talk the way a man talks when he has been holding something for far too long. My family had been landowners in the eastern region for generations. Not wealthy in a loud public way, the quiet generational kind. Real lands, real roots, money that does not advertise itself. My father had been pulled into a business agreement with men whose wealth came from fraud and stolen lands. He had not understood the full extent until he was already in too deep. By the time he tried to pull back, he knew too much. And men who knew too much became problems that needed solving. My mother had seen the danger clearly before my father fully accepted it. She tried to take me and disappeared. She never made it. Her accidents, the old man said quietly, had not been an accident. After my mother died, my father was arrested on charges connected to the fraud. My grandfather faced almost the same agonizing choice of his life. He could claim me openly, pull me out of the system, but that would have announced to the people who destroyed his family that the line was still alive, that there was still someone worth coming after. So instead, he let the world believe I had been swallowed by the system completely. He arranged for the old man to watch from a careful distance. He set up an inheritance through a trusted lawyer. He buried the letter. And then my grandfather got sick. Before he died, he made sure everything was in place for the day I was finally ready to find out. The old man finished talking and the room went silent. You watch me suffer, I said, doing all of this. Every day, he said, and his voice broke on those two words. I looked at him for a long time, despite everything. Despite every year of silence, I understood. He had kept me alive. That was what the arrangement had been. Stay close, say nothing, keep the boy alive. When I had opened the envelope the night before, I had been so consumed by the letter that I almost missed what else was inside. I turned it upside down now, and a small key slid onto the table. Small, silver, old but deliberately maintained. Not one spot of rust on it. The old man looked at it, and his expression shifted immediately. I know exactly what this is, he said. It was a safety deposit key. My grandfather had worked with a trusted lawyer to establish a box at the bank in Accra, structured to survive long after he was gone. It could only be accessed by someone with a key and 3 specific pieces of identifying information: my full name, my date of birth, my mother's maiden name. The old man drove me to the bank the next morning. Neither of us spoke much. The manager frowned when we explained why we were there. She checked her record twice, then disappeared. She returned carrying a large sealed metal box. She set it in front of me and stepped quietly away. Inside were property deeds, legal papers, financial statements, more paperwork than I had seen in one place in my life. There were photographs of a man and a woman standing before a large house in the eastern region, a small laughing boy between them. I stared at the photograph for a very long time. There was also a thick envelope of cash, and at the very bottom, wrapped a protective casing, a recorded video. We played it at the library nearby. The screen flickered and resolved. A man sat in a wooden chair in a simple room, old, thin in a way that comes from illness. His hand rested quietly in his lap. When he smiled at the camera, slow and warm and slightly sad, I recognized something in that smile immediately. I had seen it in my own reflection my entire life. If you are watching this, he said, then I am probably already gone. And I am more sorry about that than I have words to say. For 40 minutes, he told me everything: the history of the family, the land, the fraud, the threats, the impossible choices he made to keep me hidden, when every part of him wanted to do the opposite. He spoke about my father with the complicated grief of a parent watching a child destroy the life they were given. Disappointed, heartbroken, still loving him through. And then, near the end, he looked directly into the lens, directly at me across all those years. He said softly, "Your mother loved you more than anything she ever loved. Every decision she made at the end was because of you. You were her whole world." OJ, in 17 years of living through every shelter and cold, empty nights, no one ever told me that. Among all the documents on the table, there was a piece of paper I kept returning to. Not a property deed, a legal document with a case number and a name printed plainly in the middle of the page. My father's name. Beside it, a prison facility address. I had grown to believing he was dead. That was the story the system had quietly allowed to solidify 3 years of no one saying anything different. But there it was. He was alive. The feeling refused to be simple. Anger, because this man had been breathing on this earth every single day I spent invisible and alone. Confusion, because anger felt too easy, and underneath everything, quiet and refusing to leave. Hope. I sat with it for several days. I went back to the cemetery. I cleaned graves. I reread the letter. I thought. On a great Tuesday morning, I told the old man I wanted to go. The visiting room was exactly what I had expected. Plastic chair, fluorescent light, the thick atmosphere of waiting and regret that saturated those places permanently. A door opened on the far side. A man walked through it, thinner than I had pictured, tired in a way that went beyond physical, the kind of tired that comes from years of carrying the full weight of your own worst choices. Gray at his temples, deep lines in his face. He was scanning the room. Then his eyes found me. He stopped walking completely. For several long seconds, neither of us moved. Then my father covered his face with both hands. His shoulders shook. He crossed the room and sat down across from me for the first time since I was a small child. And for a long time, he could not speak. "I thought you were dead," he finally managed. They told me. I believed them. He pressed his mouth shut, tried again. "I looked for you," he said. "Before I was arrested, I looked everywhere. After, I wrote letters, filed requests. They kept telling me there were no records, that you had disappeared and could not be traced." "Why did you get involved with those people?" I asked quietly. No anger in my voice, just a question that deserved a real answer. He closed his eyes. "Because I was young and greedy and convinced myself I was smarter than I was," he said. No self-pity, just the flat, honest weight of a man who had been sitting with that answer for years. By the time I understood what I was really part of, it was already too late to walk away clean. And the people who paid the price for my mistakes, he looked directly at me, were the people I should have protected. OJ, that is where I have to stop. The legal process is ongoing. The lawyer is sharp and thorough and moving carefully through courts that do not move quickly. The property my grandfather protected is still tied up in paperwork that nobody can predict the end of. My father is still inside. We have had 3 visiting room conversations. They are not easy. There are long silences that do not fill themselves. There are things he says I do not know what to do with yet. The old man is still at the cemetery. He is still the same, still quiet, still leaving things without saying so. Some mornings I am careful for him. Some mornings I look at him and feel something I cannot name. I still sleep in the shed, not because I have to, because I do not know yet where I am supposed to go. The letter told me who I was. It did not tell me who I am supposed to become. Every morning, I still wake up before dawn and go to work. I clean the grapes, I pull the weeds, I sweep the path between the deads. And every morning, I walk past the far corner where the rusted box once waited 11 years for me in the wet ground. And I think about a man who planned everything he could from beyond his life because he loved someone he would never meet. I think about a gap between what he hoped for me and where I actually am. I do not have a resolution for you, OJ. I have a confession. I have a name that was always mine. I have a grandfather's voice on a tape. I am still trying to figure out what to build from that. Some nights it feels like enough. Some nights it does not. This is your anonymous OJ, and if you are new here, I would like you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and hype this channel. And tell somebody about your anonymous OJ. I'll see you in our next conversion.